What would you do if your family constantly took advantage of your generosity, only to reveal their true, greedy nature when they thought you were at your weakest? In today's story, one man's response is a masterclass in how to handle it, served from beyond the grave. This isn't my story, but the story of a departed great-uncle. Rest in peace, Arthur. During World War II, my great-uncle Arthur was a brilliant engineer with the RAF. He had a natural gift for leadership and quickly climbed the ranks, eventually becoming the head engineer at a local base. After the war, he returned home and met Eleanor, his wife of 45 years. Theirs was a typical post-war relationship, loving and steadfast, though complications meant they never had children. Arthur didn't rest on his laurels. He immediately found a job at our village coal mine, known to everyone locally as the Pit. Just as in the service, his knack for leadership saw him promoted from a simple engineer to foreman in what felt like the blink of an eye. He and Eleanor, along with some of his old RAF friends and his sister, my grandmother, Peggy, loved to take holidays in Spain. They went at least once a year before retirement, and whenever the mood struck them after that. But family isn't always what it's cracked up to be. While my grandmother Peggy was his only surviving direct relative, Eleanor came from a very, very large family. The trouble with large families is that there are often a few bad eggs. In this case, it was quicker to count the good ones. As Arthur used to say, the trouble with eggs is, you can only tell the good ones by spinning 'em quick, or dunking them in water, and I don't fancy going to prison. This revealed their greatest fatal flaw, a sense of entitlement, a belief that Arthur's hard-earned money was somehow their own. It was an arrogance that would ultimately seal their fate. More often than not, when Eleanor's relatives would drop by, it was to ask Arthur for money. They never asked Eleanor. She didn't have any of her own. Arthur had always been industrious, saving every penny he could and only spending what was necessary. Aside from those beloved holidays, the incident that started it all happened when I turned 18, the legal drinking age in the UK. My dad worked nights and had to sleep, so Arthur took me to the local working men's club for my first legal beer. He was a regular there, so I was surprised when he ordered a soft drink for himself. "Arthur," I said, "how come you're not drinking? I can't in good conscience drink your money without you getting a sniff." "Well, I suppose one can't hurt," he replied, finally ordering a small ale. "Don't tell Peggy," his nickname for my grandmother, but I'd just been diagnosed with diabetes type 2. "Don't want to take any chances." "I'll keep your secret," I promised, "but you need to tell her, just in case." "I'll tell her in good time, kiddo," he said with a wink. "Now get that down you before it goes flat." We were caught up in our conversation and didn't pay much attention to the people around us. We never noticed Eleanor's nephew lurking in a corner booth, his ears wide open. He muttered cruel words under his breath, completely unaware that this single, callous wish would set in motion a chain of events that would cost his family dearly. 5 years passed. I saw Arthur less than I would have liked, between my work and his frequent trips overseas. Then one day, I visited my grandparents to find my grandmother Peggy sobbing on the sofa, with Arthur sat stoically beside her. "Put the kettle on, kid," Arthur said, his voice grave. "I need to tell you something." I made a coffee for my granddad, a hot chocolate for me, green tea for Arthur, and took a fresh cup to my grandmother. "Now listen up," Arthur began. "I've not got long left on this wretched planet, but you're not to cry over me. I've been diagnosed with late-stage cancer, and frankly, I couldn't be happier to be leaving." He looked at Peggy. "Sorry, I know you don't want to hear this, but it has to be said. You and yours will be looked after, of course, but you are not to tell Eleanor and her family. I've made up a new will. I want everyone to go to the reading." I prepared a little gift for the family. Shortly after that conversation, Arthur passed away. We kept the truth from my grandmother that he had taken his own life. It would have destroyed her, but Arthur was always a fiercely independent man, and he made his choice so that Peggy wouldn't have to suffer watching him deteriorate. The day of the will reading arrived. We went as a family, as he had asked. The room was tense, filled with people we'd never met or even heard of. Sullen scowls were exchanged across the lawyer's polished table. The lawyer cleared his throat. I looked at him, and while he maintained a stoic expression, you could see a faint twinkle in his eye. I imagine most days in his line of work are somber affairs, but as one commentator on this story later put it, this lawyer must have had a blast. "Now that we're all here," the lawyer announced, "please watch this video. Arthur has a message for you all." An image of Arthur, looking healthy and resolute, filled the screen. Now then, his voice boomed from the speakers. I imagine this will be a shock to most of you, but I had cancer. If you're watching this, I want you to know that some of you made my last few years pleasant. Others, well, we'll get to you. He looked directly into the camera, his gaze warm as he addressed my side of the family. Not one of you came to me asking if I was all right or wanted anything doing. Instead, you asked if I wanted a hand with anything. For this, I thank you. I've never had anyone do anything for me unless they were my underlings in the RAF, and I didn't aim to start when I was on my way out. You knew me better than most of my close family. Now then, let's get to the good bit. His expression hardened. To Eleanor's family, you lot, where do I begin? When I took my grandnephew out for his first pint, apparently the walls have ears. One of you overheard me say I had diabetes. Shame you had to say. It's a shame it wasn't cancer. Guess you got your wish, eh? A wave of shock rippled through the room. Eleanor's relatives shifted uncomfortably, their faces a mixture of pale denial and dawning horror. They began whispering furiously to one another, their eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. Arthur continued, his voice dripping with contempt. The rest of you, whenever you visited, you almost always asked if you could borrow money. It's fine, I didn't mind lending it, but I did expect to get it back. So, here's how this is going to work. I've split my money and put it in trust with my oldest friend. He nodded towards the lawyer. Nobody is getting a thing until Eleanor passes away, so don't bother asking. She can stay in the house I worked my ass off for until she either dies or has to go into care. The house is not to be sold until after she dies. Lazy as she is, she's still my wife. Once she dies, the house is to be sold at a reasonable price, and the money added to my estate. Then came the masterstroke. Now, here's how it'll be split. If you borrowed money from me and paid it back, you'll get a fair share. If you haven't repaid the money you borrowed, you'll still get a cut, minus what you owe me. For some of you, he let out a dry chuckle. I hope you know I'm laughing at your squirming from beyond the grave. Serves you right. He then addressed his own family with genuine warmth, promising my grandmother Peggy the lion's share and ensuring her sons and their children would be well provided for. He even left a cup for my mum, telling her to like it or lump it. He thanked me for helping him out of the bath one night and with some decorating, saying I would receive a cut to be determined by future events. Finally, he turned his attention back to his wife's family. To the rest of you, I'm utterly disgusted to have known you. I mentioned Eleanor can live in the house. If she dies or is put into care, nobody is to live in that house. I don't want anyone I don't trust in there. Now quit your crying and go about your lives. The video ended. As you can imagine, an uproar ensued from Eleanor's side of the family. We simply nodded to the lawyer and left them to their sputtering rage. That was my great-uncle Arthur. As another observer later noted, he was no nonsense and straight down the line. There aren't many men like him left. Shortly after the funeral, Eleanor went into a retirement home, paid for with her own money. A couple of months later, we were all called back to the lawyer's office. A second video was waiting. I'm not surprised this video has been played. Arthur's voice echoed once more. Some of you just don't follow orders. If you're watching this, it means that someone I don't trust was found to be living in my house. I don't give a damn who it is. My lawyer has instructions. For the sake of his voice and sanity, whoever was found in the house against my wishes is now stricken from the will entirely. If the others want to share their money with you, that's their loss. You'll not get a penny from me. It turned out that my cousin, one of Eleanor's nieces who had bullied me in school, had convinced Eleanor to move out, claiming her family needed the house. She, her boyfriend, their 2 kids, and a dog had moved right in. It was a breathtakingly audacious move, born of pure greed. She was so focused on the prize of a free house that she never considered a man as meticulous as Arthur would have a contingency plan. What they hadn't counted on were the nosy neighbors. Arthur had asked them to watch the house and report any new residents to his lawyer. In return, they'd get a cut of his estate. They were good people, and they made the call. The lesson here is simple, and it was served from beyond the grave. Don't screw with a war vet. Respect is something you earn, and those who trade it for greed often end up with nothing at all. So, what do you think was the most brilliant part of Arthur's plan? The way he deducted the unpaid loans, or the trap he set with the house? Let us know in the comments below.